Imagine stepping onto a film set, so chaotic that the lead actors had to drink between takes just to survive the script. Directors were fighting producers, the story was being rewritten daily, and expensive animatronics were breaking down in the middle of filming. This wasn't a psychological thriller. This wasn't a war movie. This was the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Film. Now today we're reconstructing the nightmarish production that turned Nintendo's most beloved characters into one of Hollywood's most fascinating disasters. Hey everyone, welcome back to Bushwick's Review Hub, and today we're diving into one of the most chaotic movie productions ever made. The 1993 Super Mario Bros. Film. A film so troubled and so bizarre and so disconnected from the source material, it almost killed video game movies before they even existed. Now from script to screen, this is the nightmarish production of Mario's first cinematic outing. Section 1. Visionary Chaos and the Industrial Rift. In the early 1990s, Nintendo was sitting on top of the world. Mario was the face of gaming, a global icon, a family-friendly character loved by millions. Hollywood saw an opportunity, and soon a deal was made to bring Mario to the big screen with a massive $48 million budget, a huge gamble for a video game adaptation at the time. But from the very beginning, there was a problem: the directors. Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel weren't interested in making a colourful Mushroom Kingdom adventure. They wanted something darker, something cyberpunk, something inspired by dystopian science fiction like Blade Runner. Instead of bright castles and mushrooms, they envisioned a grim industrial world ruled by evolved dinosaurs and corporate decay. Nintendo wanted a fun family movie. The directors wanted an artistic cyberpunk experience, and that creative clash would begin tearing the production apart before film even started. Even worse, the script was constantly changing. Writers were being replaced, scenes were rewritten overnight, and actors were receiving new pages every single day. There was no clear vision, only chaos. Now this is where things really started falling apart. When you have a massive budget, a global brand like Mario, and a production team that has no clear direction on which way they're going, you are setting the stage for disaster. And once filming started, it was all downhill from there. Section 2. The toxic environment on the Dino Manhattan set. Filming took place in North Carolina on a massive industrial set designed to create Dino Manhattan, a dark dystopian version of New York City. And the conditions were brutal. Long hours, extreme heat, constant technical problems, and a script that still wasn't finished. The cast quickly became frustrated. Bob Hoskins, who played Mario, later admitted he had no idea what the film was even about. John Leguizamo, who played Luigi, has openly spoke about how chaotic the production was. The two actors reportedly drank between takes just to cope with the stress and confusion of the filming process. Directors were clashing with producers, the studio was stepping in constantly, and the atmosphere on set became toxic. Then came the accidents. Stunts went wrong, actors were injured, and the animatronic Yoshi, one of the film's most expensive creations, constantly malfunctioned. Scenes had to be reshot, timelines were pushed back, and the budget kept climbing. And at one point, the production was so unstable that control of the film was essentially taken away from the directors. The movie was no longer a creative project, it was a survival mission. And this is where the Super Mario Bros. Movie stopped becoming an adaptation and started becoming something really strange. Instead of the production actually fixing the problem, they leaned more deep into the bizarre and the surreal of what this movie could be. Section 3. The surrealist transformation of source material. The world of Mario was completely transformed. Gone was the colourful Mushroom Kingdom. In its place was a dark industrial city filled with devolved humans and reptilian creatures. Koopa was no longer a cartoon villain. He was a corporate dictator ruling over a dystopian society. Goombas were no longer cute mushroom enemies. They were towering humanoid monsters with tiny heads and terrifying expressions. The film leaned heavily into strange creature designs and body horror elements that felt more like experimental science fiction than a family adventure. Even the tone was darker. Themes of evolution, corporate control, and social decay replaced the light-hearted charm of the video games. Instead of adapting Mario, the filmmakers reinvented it into something almost unrecognizable. And in doing so, they accidentally created one of the most strangest video game adaptations ever made. By the time the movie finished, it was clear that something was terribly wrong, but the horror was still to come, because by the time it hit audiences, that's when the real reaction hit home. Section 4. Fallout of a cinematic identity crisis. Test screenings were a disaster. Audiences were confused, parents didn't understand the dark tone. Fans didn't recognise the Mario they loved. The studio panicked. Editors rushed to add humour and lighten the tone. Scenes were cut, dialogue was changed, music was even adjusted, but it was too late. When Super Mario Bros. Released in 1993, critics tore it apart. Reviews called it confusing, bizarre, and completely disconnected from its source material. At the box office, the film struggled. It failed to make back its massive budget, and Hollywood quickly learned a harsh lesson. Video game movies were risky, too risky. Nintendo, disappointed with the experience, pulled away from Hollywood for decades. For nearly 30 years, they refused to license their characters for major film adaptations. The damage was done, and Mario's first cinematic outing had become a cautionary tale. But something interesting happened over time. Instead of being forgotten, the movie gained a strange new reputation. Section 5. The Legacy of the Ultimate Industrial Train Wreck. Years later, audiences began to re-evaluate Super Mario Bros. Not as a faithful adaptation, but as a bizarre piece of cinema. Its dark cyberpunk world became fascinating. Its strange creature design became memorable, and its chaotic production story became legendary. The film slowly gained cult status. Fans started appreciating it for what it was, a strange, ambitious, and completely unique experience. And decades later, Nintendo finally returned to Hollywood, this time with a safer, more faithful approach. And the result was a billion-dollar animated success and a complete different legacy for Mario on the big screen. The industry had learned from the disasters of 1993, and the chaos of that production helped shape the future of video game movies forever. Now, I feel to some people that the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie was a disaster, but it's got to be one of the most brilliant failures in movie history. Like, they went for a game adaptation and of course missed the mark by a mile. We all know that Mario is all, you know, bright colours, Mushroom Kingdom, all this, and next thing you know, to pop out this weird, dark, dystopian, cyberpunk Mario world was pretty strange and incredible for the time. Like, just to completely go, you know what, don't need no source material, we got this. But no, I feel that it's come up in its way, this old movie, and especially since the new movies are out, you can't forget these oldies that, you know, sort of brought them along and made us really want for these new animated movies that are out now. But I want to think what you hear at home about this. Did you actually watch the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie? If you haven't, why don't you go check it out and then leave it down in the comments once you actually thought about it. And then, just quickly, I'd just like to say thank you to all my subs. I love you all. Thank you for watching my videos. Anyone that's new that's watching, just like to say, don't forget to like, subscribe, and jump over to my channel and check out some of my videos. You might just like them. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.